Welcome back. I am Uchenna Amadi, your favorite host, still asking uncomfortable questions in the name of better health. We are discussing malaria. And with me here is Dr. Owoeye and Dr. Ajibawo. They have done justice to the previous episode where we talked about, does everybody have malaria? In this one, we are talking about malaria and children. What makes them different? Please do not forget to like, subscribe, share, and follow SYNLAB Nigeria on YouTube and Spotify. Over to Dr. Ajibawo. I'd like to ask, why are children more vulnerable to malaria complications than adults?
Yes, thank you very much. Children are more vulnerable to malaria in general and its complications because especially children between 5 months and less than 5 years.
Okay.
Because their immunity, their immune system is not yet developed enough to, tolerate malaria, let's put it that way.
Wow.
Because they don't have the immunity developed from frequent exposure to malaria to now actually be able to handle the malaria. When we get exposed to malaria, especially those of us that live here in endemic malaria endemic regions like sub-Saharan Africa, our frequent exposure to malaria actually gives us some level of immunity to malaria, and that immunity is built over time.
Okay.
So for a child is still new to this world and sub-Saharan Africa, so is as the immunity to malaria is low, and so as also people coming from areas where malaria is not endemic. Now, why did I say from 5 months? Children, new infants, when they are newly born, they get some passive immunity from their mothers.
Okay.
The antibodies are transferred to the children from the mothers. So a child 4 months and less is not likely to have malaria. But children 5 months, 6 months to less than 5 years are at higher risk because their immunity to malaria is low.
Okay.
Also, their innate immunity is also still low to every other thing. So when they get infected with malaria, the malaria attacks them so bad that in less than 24 hours, they can actually deteriorate so much. Yes. The blood cells, maybe Dr. Owoeye will add that, so that the red blood cells get immobilized, they get broken down, and so they get anemia so fast, no shortage of blood. They get seizures, even the fever, malaria fever, the fever of malaria in them is so high.
Wow.
It's the way it's described, I can actually say it almost fries their brain because yes, they get seizures, they can get coma.
Wow.
Yeah. Yes. So malaria is dangerous in children and should actually be prevented in children.
Dr. Owoeye, I'm interested because I was going to come to you because I know about the hemolysis part. I know a bit about that, but can you just paint a picture of how, let's say, the Plasmodium falciparum acts when they're in children, like what she was just trying to explain?
Well, I guess
now we want to do the science of it.
She had given a very beautiful illustration about the bases. It's the immunity. And because immunity in children is low, they have what we call high parasite density load. Because, normally the way I always explain immunity is like I use Newton's law of motion, action and reaction, equal and opposite. So when you have something foreign come into the body, then the body reacts, to the production of antibodies and all. So when you have children who actually, at that stage of their life, they don't really have any immunity, so to say, strong immunity, cannot mount any resistance, and of course, the parasite must survive. So it's always like, I'm having a free day here. So then it just begins to multiply. Then one of the things that actually characterizes severe malaria is when you have a very high parasite density load. And it's just because of the fact that the immunity is not that strong. So the parasite is just swimming in and laughing in glee, in the blood. And of course, there are two places where they usually like to hide: the liver and then, of course, the mature forms would go into the red blood cells.
Wow.
So, and when they enter in the red blood cells, and of course, because of the fact that the way the body is wired, anything that is foreign, that you have in the body, particularly in the red blood cell has the normal or standard way must look.
Okay.
And but there are quality control organs in the body. The chiefest of them is the spleen. So, and then blood usually passes through that. So when the parasitized red blood cells, and you have a lot of parasites now in the red blood cells, for example, maybe you have 100 red blood cells, swimming in the body, and you have like 50 of them, being occupied by parasites. I'm just using this for illustration.
Wow. Okay.
And then when they're now passing through the spleen, which performs that quality control function, you have specialized cells in that spleen. They're like police. We call them macrophages. So they take out all parasitized red blood cells. They break them down. And so as a result of that, the child has low blood level. That's anemia. And the anemia, because you have a lot of parasites in the red blood cells, so you have a whole lot of parasitized red blood cells breaking down. So they have anemia, severe anemia, which also is one of, the things that characterizes, severe malaria. And again, as a result of the breakdown of those red blood cells, when they are broken down, bilirubin, there's a substance, a protein that is produced as a byproduct, especially when the breakdown is occurring in either the spleen or the liver. This process can also occur in the liver. So they become, and that bilirubin is yellowish in color. So it colors, the eyes, yellow. So, and they can also, and if the breakdown is occurring right in the blood vessels, because it can also occur right in that blood vessels, even before it gets into the spleen, they have passage of dark-colored urine.
Wow.
So you can see them when they have severe malaria, they have passage of dark-colored urine, and then they also have jaundice, and then the severity of the disease is directly proportional to, the symptom, the severity of the jaundice or, the passage of the dark-colored urine. So in like a very simplified way. This is a very simplified way to actually explain what basically
this is very scary
is happening there. So the immature forms will stay mostly in the liver, and then the mature forms would move into the blood, and then they enter into the red blood cells, and then they cause all these things that I had explained. So basically, that's what
a poor baby.
Yeah, the poor baby.
No, so that's why Dr. Ajibawo said it has to be prevented in children. It's even safer to prevent than having to deal with this type of complication is something else. So Dr. Ajibawo, I want to find out, how does malaria affect a child's growth, learning, and overall development?
Yeah. So in addition to the problem of immunity in children, when it's severe in them, because when the fever is high, I want to go back to that first question. They are predisposed to refusal of feeds, nausea, vomiting.
Refusal of what?
Feeds. They don't have an appetite.
Okay. Okay.
They get to vomit. So even giving them medicine at home is a problem. So in the end, they get hospitalized with their mother and all that. So it's a problem in children. Now, how does it affect their growth? So if you don't prevent malaria in a child, or if you don't treat as promptly as you should, it exposes them to all this complication. Because any child that has malaria for 24 hours and is not addressed, all these things is already ongoing. There's problem of low sugar, hypoglycemia, depending on the age of the child. There's problem of severe malaria. There's seizures.
Hypoglycemia.
Sorry, low sugar.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Low sugar. So
I'm struggling to understand the relationship.
Yes, because of the malaria.
Yes.
It's as simple as that, because of the malaria and the fact that the child is not even eating.
To even replenish.
The child is vomiting. It's not even taking the medicine. It's a problem.
Wow.
Yes. So that child is, if a child is having malaria in 24 hours and you're not getting the right treatment, you're not getting treatment, it's not getting diagnosed, that child is already deteriorating. So if you don't prevent malaria, that child is probably going to have frequent episodes. So there is the problem of the complications. Being out of school for some days, being unable to eat for some days, being low in blood for weeks, because once the child is low in blood, it takes 3 months thereabout or 2 months to get the blood, both the red blood cells, both back to the normal levels, and function again. It doesn't. So a child that is exposed to that level of dysfunction frequently is going to be low. The growth is going to be affected. The stature is going to be affected.
Wow.
Even the intelligence. The other time I mentioned that it fries the brain essentially. It's an hyperbole, but it's real.
Wow.
The child is going to have low intelligence. The child is going to, someone that is low in blood all the time is going to be tired most of the time. He's not going to be involved in play. And children learn as
When
they play.
yeah.
Yes, children learn as they play. So it's going to be difficult for the child being exposed to malaria infections too frequently.
Okay. So, like, what warning signs of malaria in children should never be ignored?
Oh, everything. Fever.
Yeah.
Fever
run,
alone.
headache run.
Fever.
And the funny thing,
yes, ma'am.
They won't. They can, like the new baby.
Yeah.
Cannot tell you they are having headache.
Yes, that's why they will
That's
have. They probably
scary.
For a baby, for an infant. Let's say for an infant, it's probably fever and refusal of feed.
That should actually prompt you.
Yes.
So
as
once a parent notices fever is just a precursor of a downward spiral, as far as I'm as a mother
Just
and as a
jump.
doctor. Because a child with fever is probably going to have headache and won't be able to tell you. A child with fever is going to become so nauseous and that they won't be able to take food down, and then even paracetamol won't be able to. He won't be able to hold paracetamol in his stomach. You understand? So how would you treat? You're going to end up in the hospital on admission and be getting intravenous fluid. So number one, if a child has fever, you have to attend to it, either by exposing the child, giving, using tepid spongy pouring water on the baby, and giving paracetamol. So fever cannot be ignored. Some babies become tired. In fact, one of the signs of severe malaria is what we call prostration. When you are so tired, you don't want to do anything. So when children become that tired and fatigued, infants just sleep off, and mothers are happy he's sleeping. A child is sleeping for more than 3 hours in the daytime. You are not waking him up to eat. So that means the child is slipping into a coma because he's not, the malaria is already depleting the sugar. You are not waking him up to eat. He's tired. He's slipping into a coma. Wake him up and get him to eat. So that level of lethargy and fatigue is a problem. Vomiting is a problem. The child is going to get dehydrated.
Of course.
So everything about malaria in children seems to be an extreme. And adults can have malaria and still go to work.
Of course.
Yes, and still try to function, even so though it's detrimental to his health. But everything about malaria presentation in children should not be ignored. Fever, refusal to feed, headache, neck stiffness, not responding, seizures. Then you don't do all those things where they'll put spoon in the mouth, put the leg in fire. Yes.
Yeah, people do
We
that.
have all sorts of traditions.
What is going on?
People do this.
Don't do those things.
People do this.
Leg in fire, and
Yeah.
I'm watching
Yes.
you.
Yes.
I will kick you.
Okay, it's because you're educated.
Yeah, you're
That's what you're
educated.
saying.
Wow.
So we should not. Once a child is convulsing, you take the child to the hospital. So you don't even wait till that. But high fever can cause seizures.
Permits me to call out some mothers on this, because when you said the child goes into deep sleep and the mother is happy, I understand that children are very hyper.
Yeah.
Yes, I have 2 of them, 2 boys. So I understand. But it's quite scary when you said that sometimes the child goes to sleep for long hours and the mom is not waking him to eat or waking her to eat, and they may be sleeping into coma. I also am aware of some mothers who probably know or have a feeling that this child needs to go to the hospital because this child is having fever or maybe some other symptoms that you have explained. And instead of going to the hospital, maybe for fear of they're going to test my baby, they're going to choke my baby. I don't want my baby to be choked. They now decide to get medication to treat the symptoms. I would like you to address that, please. You know, when you're not going to the hospital for what you're supposed to do, you're now saying, oh, fever, let me give paracetamol. Vomiting, let me give ORS. So what do you have to say about that, please?
Yes, we want you to administer some home remedy and then bring to the hospital.
Because some people will administer and let go.
No. We want you to, for children under 5, they are not the people that you would say, give paracetamol for 3 days, and if there's no improvement after 3 days, you come to your doctor. No, not for children under 5 years. You consult, you give the child paracetamol and then come to the hospital. The child vomits, you try to give the child an ORS and then come to the hospital as soon as possible. Those people are even giving their children ORS and paracetamol, you said. I've seen mothers that give their children agbo, and after the second day they come, the child is looking paper white. As in, I've been hearing paper white as a student, but when I went to this community, I saw paper white. And before you're able to do anything, unfortunately, the child passes.
Wow.
Yes, because they deteriorate so fast as children. I needed to say that. So, you don't.
Please, while we're on the subject of Abu, please, I need you to say something about it, please. Whether it's to discourage, I don't know. I am happy for the platform. Please, so what's your candid opinion?
Yes, we've been in this West Africa for so long. Our ancestors have all this agbo, and some of them probably work. Now we have a body in charge of traditional medicine, and some of those things are being tested in pharmacology departments of many of our hospital, universities, and all that.
That's impressive.
Yes, but the way we source things still is not according to those people's prescription, the people that are learning it. So we hand these things down. I know even I myself growing up, my mom has, and my grandmother, my dad, they have their concoction for every fever, but they still made us go to hospital. So please, those things are not, we don't know the doses. The way it's been passed on have been in such variant ways that you don't know which is which. In fact, when they sell it, everybody has their own combinations ingredients. So there's no standardization, there's no dose, there's no research behind. We are not saying they don't work, but where it has been studied but let's leave children out of those things, please. Let's leave children out of those things.
Wow.
Particularly, importantly.
Thank you very much. Dr. Owoeye, let me come to you briefly. How does delayed or incorrect diagnosis impact outcomes in children? Like when you delay the diagnosis. Well, I know she has touched a bit on it. Yeah.
Now, I was actually going to say something also, and I guess it's related to what you asked.
Okay.
That window period she gave, 5 months, to 5 years. During that period, the brain of a child is, developing, and any insult or injury to the brain within this period could actually become permanent.
Wow.
And so now imagine a child who has severe malaria, that has anemia, that has a lot of breakdown of the red blood cells. Now, I was describing something the other time about jaundice, bilirubin, describing it being a byproduct of that breakdown.
Yeah.
Now, when this particular bilirubin is so much in the blood,
yes,
it can actually cross the blood-brain barrier and enter into the brain, and it can do some permanent, lifelong damage to the child. Okay. Now, let me bring that home. So, if a child has malaria and then you delay treatment, and the child within that age group, so that child could actually become disabled for life. That's what it means,
Sorry, Dr. Owoeye,
yes.
Disabled is a strong word.
Yes. That child could
become...
That bad? Yes, it could be that bad. So again, when you actually make the wrong diagnosis, we are assuming that the child has malaria and the child probably has a meningitis or a pneumonia, and which are very serious, disease conditions in themselves. You can actually find your child also having some form of permanent disability, or the child might even die. So it's very, very important for us to actually get her diagnosis right properly. She used 24 hours, and I will actually go with that.
Okay. Thank you very much for your contributions in
You're
this
most
episode.
welcome.
This is one of those conversations every parent and caregiver needs to hear. Early and accurate diagnosis can literally change a child's future. Please do not forget to like, subscribe, share, and follow SYNLAB Nigeria on YouTube and on Spotify. Please stay tuned. We are getting started.